All right, everybody repeat after me. Beast. Yeah, sorry. I want to start off by thanking a couple of guys who I just met this year. And this is my first reunion, probably not my last, hopefully. I would like to thank Dave Blake in the back there, if everybody could give him a round of applause here. Dave works very hard on this reunion, and I'm sure past reunions. I also want to thank Kim Hobbs. He's done a great job. That was supposed to be a standing ovation. That didn't work. Okay, so who am I? Who the heck am I? I am a veteran, 20 years in the Massachusetts Army National Guard, retired as a captain a few years ago. Both my parents were in World War II. My father was in the Pacific. My mother was a nurse and ensign in Minnesota. My two uncles are my connection to the 15th Air Force. My Uncle Harry on my mother's side was a ball turret gunner. He volunteered for that. He was not the shortest man on the plane. I was told it was supposed to be the shortest man, but he was a little crazy, and he volunteered, and he was a ball turret gunner. He lived to 98. He just passed away in February this year. My other uncle didn't make it back. My Uncle Morris Peck, I'm going to talk about him in a minute, and that's kind of my connection. My grandfather, George Peck, who was in World War I, turned over the family history to me many years ago. Before Facebook, before internet and everything, he had done all the work, and he turned it over to me, and I took it very seriously. And I used to go to my grandparents' home in Middlebury, Vermont, and there was a picture on the wall, a Purple Heart, and it was my Uncle Morris, who was my father's brother, and I always wondered about Uncle Morris, but my grandparents wouldn't talk much about it. They were pretty devastated by it. My grandmother loved being a Gold Star mother, though. She would sit in the convertible for all the Memorial Day parades, and she loved that part of it, but they never quite got over it. So I always wanted to know about Uncle Morris, and so I've got a pretty inquisitive mind. I'm a professional genealogist, professional historian. So I set off to find out about Uncle Morris, and I had heard that he bailed out over an island in the Adriatic, and I said, what the heck did they do that for? Well, I always thought that the pilot was smart, and he said, well, there's an island, let's bail out over the island. You know, we won't go into the ocean, and so they bailed out. Well, that wasn't the story when I finally got into it, and you'll see it in a minute. If I don't keep going, I'm going to go too long here. So I'm going to be talking about Vis. Again, Vis, the last hope. It's an island right off the coast of Croatia, formerly Yugoslavia. A lot of people don't even know that Croatia was Yugoslavia, but it was. It's a beautiful island. But first thing I want to do is I want to show this slide. This is a bug I have about the 8th Air Force versus the 15th Air Force. Now, I'm not going to get into it here, but maybe I am. They've got this show. I hear it's pretty good. I don't know. And what I'm going to say is I think there should be a 15th Air Force follow-up to it, don't you think? Well, if anybody knows Tom Hanks or Steven Spielberg, give them a call. I actually have been in touch with some screenwriters trying to get this done, but it's just a pet peeve of mine. So anyway, Masters of the Air, still streaming on Apple TV Plus if you've got it. If you haven't watched it, it's really done well. The difference is it's the 8th, basically the 100th Bomb Group, early 1943 to 45, B-17s for the most part. I'm not even sure they had I think they had some B-24s, but basically B-17s and 10-man crews, just like the B-24. Now, everybody here knows this, so I'm not going to go walking through everything. This is kind of the background. When I give presentations, I try to give some history. There were 21 bomb groups. Correct me if I'm wrong. I may be wrong. But I counted them up and had to take my shoes off. But They flew B-24s and B-17s. There were two fighter wings with two fighter wings with 7 fighter groups, that's it. Anyway, and they bombed, you can see all those different countries they bombed the hell out of, and you can see the things that they bombed. This is the best map I found. There's a couple of maps out there, and you've probably seen the other one. This shows all the bases, and it's got really good list here. It's all, I think there's 23 or 27 bases, includes the fighter bases, in the middle part of Italy, near Bari, near Foggia. I think it was called the Foggia, if I'm pronouncing that right, complex. Yeah. Watch it. Okay, so this is nothing new. This happens to be the tail of my uncle's 456 bomb group. That's the tail marking of that, and I have, and then shows the B-24 and then in formation. Okay, let's talk about V's. There's a few bullets up here, and the print's not that big, but let me read it to you. By the beginning of 1944, it was the only island not taken by the Germans, and it was never taken by the Germans, which is amazing. They tried to take it. They really did, but they couldn't take it. It was defended by Tito's partisans and the British. The People's Liberation Army of Yugoslavia, the NOVJ, N-O-V-J, the leader, Marshal Tito, had his headquarters on V's for a while. It was actually in a cave, and the cave still exists there, and you can visit the cave. You have to walk up 300 steps or something like that. They built a small airstrip in February 1944. That was for fighters and for defense of the island. I'll show you how big that was in a minute. They built a larger one that April. The American engineers were flown over there, and they actually built it. The engineers built it. It was operated by the RAF. They operated the tower with partisan support. It's the ideal location on the path of bomber missions. You're coming from Italy, you're going north, you go across the Adriatic, and you always come back the same way. And so all the crews were briefed. All the pilots knew that it existed. So if they were in trouble, they would go to V's. It played a key role in saving over 4,000 Allied airmen in damaged planes. This is an aerial, actually in July 44, of the airstrip. We're looking south here, and you'll see in a minute what I mean. This is the big airstrip. This shows you the location, and if I can find my pointer, I've circled it in the upper right-hand corner. I think everybody can see the blue circle. I got fancy here. I got a little pointer right there. That's V's. These are all the airfields here. So when they were going north, they would go by V's, and they would go by V's on the way back. This is another one. This happens to be where my uncle's Stornera was his base, 456 bomb group. And he was bombing in Vienna the last time he went up. So, you know, right over V's and right back over V's. So when they came back right over V's, and like I said, they attempted to land there. This is the picture of the two airfields. On the top here, this green is the small airfield for fighters planes. I think a couple of B-24s tried to land there too. But this is the bigger strip over here, and this is 4,300 feet long. I'm not an expert. Sorry? Okay, sorry. I'm not an expert, but 4,300 feet for a B-24 bomber is not enough. They often had to put parachutes out the windows, and they would break them as they came in. Okay. Okay, landings on V's. I've got a little video here. Just bear with me.
B-24 makes an emergency landing at a tiny island off the Yugoslavian coast. The island's airstrip has served as a haven for both bombers and fighters, either damaged, out of fuel, or for other reasons unable to survive the long overwater flight to their Italian bases. Now that the Balkans are being liberated, the operations of this air service repair squadron can be revealed. A crane pulls the B-24 out of the mud for a tire change. During mission days, planes drop in over the peaceful countryside after having eluded heavy flak in raids on enemy territory. The grounded planes are given rapid service, ranging from minor repairs to a complete overhaul, including everything from patching up flak damage to a change of engines. Yugoslav mechanics work alongside our repair crews. While the repairs are underway, the Americans tour the nearby villages and waterfront. They chat with Yugoslav patriots who helped liberate the island, including women who wear the cap of the partisan fighters. During bad weather, Yugoslavian ships bring in food and supplies for the Yank Islanders. During good weather, most of the cargoes are flown in on regular schedule by C-47s, which load up in Italy. On the return trip, the cargo planes often take along crews whose planes are damaged beyond repair. Most of the aircraft, however, are soon made fit to fly. The crews say goodbye to their American and Yugoslav mechanics and return to Italy for further missions. This base, in the midst of German-held territory, was captured by the partisans and turned over to the Allies to save flak-riddled bombers returning from Balkan missions. Planes which, together with their crews, would otherwise have been lost.
Okay, well, here's some pictures of these, the airstrip, and in the upper right-hand corner, you can see some of the B-24s and the B-17s that are there. Again, over here, if they landed there, they used the parts for repairing planes. This is actually October 7th, 1944. They sent various boats and planes out to rescue Allied airmen. And you can see some more planes down there. This is some of the equipment, heavy equipment that they used. In the lower left-hand corner here, you can see the metal, which was called PSP. I'm not sure what it was stood for. I should have looked it up, but it was spread on the dirt. You know what it is?
Perforated steel planking.
Yeah, thank you.
Morris Peck.
Yes, it's reinforced steel plating, and it was put in October, a week after my uncle attempted to land there. And otherwise, if it rained, these B-24s would get stuck in the mud. In the lower right-hand corner, we can see the daily log. They actually typed it out that the RAF kept. And so we have every day we have the log. In fact, on my Facebook page, I'm posting every day's log so that people can read it. I'll come to that in a minute. This is a book that some of you may have heard of. And this is an excellent, excellent book. I think it's like 350 pages. It's beautifully put together by a man named Daniel Furka. And I met Daniel. He's an author, he's a diver, and an artist. And he wrote this book in 2012. I saw that somebody had a copy of it. I have a copy up here. And it's a little pricey, but you can buy it on Amazon. It takes a few weeks to get it. I know some people have gotten copies. I think, Garrett, you get a copy?
Not yet.
Yeah, so some people have gotten copies. I highly recommend it. I don't get a cut in it. I don't get 5% or anything, but I recommend this book. This is the source for much of the information that I have. Okay, let's talk about the bomb groups that landed on these. Every day I get more reports of planes that, bombers or fighter pilots who landed there. I have compiled a complete list on an Excel worksheet of from various people like Hughes Glansberg, John Tudor. I don't know, John, did you make it? Hey, John, there's the man. His father landed on V's too. John and also Mark Coffey. I don't think Mark's here. But anyway, I also, if you go on Facebook, there's a lot of bomber groups. I think people on Facebook, the bomber groups, people are very, very helpful on there. So I got a lot of information, and every day I'll get something and say, this guy landed on V's, my father, my uncle, whatever. Just amazing the number of people that landed on V's. So there's many stories. I'm trying to collect them. I'll share with anyone. My email is up there. So that's that. Okay, famous landings. We just had the little George McGovern piece there. This is kind of a follow-up. It's a nice segue. Thank you very much to the previous speaker. This is George. He landed on V's. He landed there in December 20th, 1944. He was in the 455th. He was a bomber pilot. He was 22 years old from South Dakota. It was a bombing mission to Czechoslovakia. One engine was gone, then they dropped the bombs. The second engine was hit and on fire. He barely made it to V's. On the return, he landed successfully, just barely, by the end of the runway with no casualties, and his crew was returned to the base. This one I think will work. Let's test it out. This is George in his own, hope it comes on, his own voice talking about his landing on V's. I got this from the McGovern Legacy Museum at Dakota Wesleyan University. It was recorded in 2006.
Mission failed an hour short of the target, a German arms plant in Czechoslovakia. Instead of turning back, we dropped our bombs on schedule only to have a second engine blow a cylinder. Losing altitude too fast to make it back to our base, the only chance was a tiny landing strip on a mountainous island in the Adriatic Sea. It was a 2,200-foot landing strip that had been built for fighter planes. You needed about 5,000 feet to land a bomber. We threw out everything we could. On our final approach, I spotted a graveyard of planes that hadn't made it. By now, the windmilling engine had caught fire, giving us 5 minutes before the wing tanks exploded. We touched down on the first few feet of runway and rode the brakes all the way to the end. As we leaped from the plane, a second B-24 came in behind us. It slammed into the side of the mountain, killing everyone on board. I was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. My final mission was the most harrowing of all.
Here's another famous landing on V's, and here's another famous politician who didn't get elected, but he was a war hero, Lloyd Benson. If you Google Lloyd Benson, what are you going to get? Everybody knows this. What are you going to get?
You know John Kennedy.
Yeah, there it is. He debated, what was his name? Dan Quayle. And he mentioned John Kennedy, and he said to him, I knew John Kennedy, and you know John Kennedy. So it's kind of ironic that a very important politician and war hero, that's what he's remembered for. It's a shame, really is. He was a bomber pilot. He was in the 449th. I think we have 449th here somewhere. Anyway, he landed there on October 16th, 1944. It was 10 days after my uncle, what I'll talk about in a minute. He went to the St. Valentin Tank Works. The primary target was not located. They went to an alternate target. One engine was inoperative, 2 engines sporadic. He only had 1 good engine. Jettisoned all the possible equipment. Landed on V's again, just like McGovern, and successfully, and returned to the base. So that day, actually. Not so famous attempted landing. This is my uncle. It's an enhanced picture I had done by a Dutch artist. This is my uncle Morris Peck. He was 20 years old from Middlebury, Vermont. He was missing in action. What happened was on October 7th, 1944, remember I said the PSP was not down. They did not put it all down, so there was a B-24 mired on the runway. And so the pilot, his pilot came in and radioed the tower, and he said, you know, can we land? And he said, no, there's a bomber stuck on the runway. You're going to have to do one of two things. You're going to have to ditch in a B-24, yeah, or you're going to have to bail out. And that was the choice of the pilot. And so he tried to go to Italy, and then he couldn't make it. There were 10 crew on there, and so he came in from the northeast to land, and just as they got over the runway, he gave the bailout order. There were 7 in the front and 3 in the back, and my uncle was in charge of the back. The 7 in the front all survived. One had a broken leg, I think. And the 3 in the back, including my uncle, went right into the sea. My uncle's body was never found, as was another Sergeant Gar. My uncle's parachute and his ID tags were found. I found a reference that said they were found in 1952, believe it or not, in an island 25 miles to the west. But I can't find anything more on that, unfortunately. I'd love to find that parachute and the ID tags, but I can't find it. So Sergeant Dicranian from Massachusetts, he drowned in the bay, and they recovered his body, and they buried him on the island. So that's not so famous landing, famous for me, but that's my uncle. Whoops, where am I going? Okay, just a couple of pictures of my uncle. That's my Uncle Morris on the right, relaxing with his pipe. He took one of those oil tanks and he made a stove. It was illegal, but they didn't care. On the left-hand side, that's them about a month. That's his crew, about a month before the incident. That's my uncle right there, kneeling. All the officers are standing. That's the pilot on the left. And then the 3 that died are kind of these 3 guys here in the middle. Is him, and my uncle. I don't know why that happens. All right, well this is another unfortunate thing, and somebody mentioned, you know, getting stories from people before it's too late. Well, I didn't know this guy was still alive. He was the navigator, Dan Driver. And I wasn't really into it back then. Come to find out, he got taped by his son-in-law, and this is him speaking.
We had a mission to Vienna, and our plane
Everybody hear that?
got hit by flak. We had been hit, I guess, on several missions, taking hits and torn holes in the plane and so on. But this particular one knocked holes in the gas tank. And I don't recall whether we were aware of it or not, but we were dripping gas all the way back. And when we got to the coast of Yugoslavia, on the east side of the Adriatic, we were out of gas. I guess at least 2 engines quit because there was no gas, and so they were manually pumping gas from one side to the other. Right. And they managed to restart those engines, but we didn't have more than 10 or 15 minutes of gas. And so I was able to tell them where the island was. It was our refuge. There was the Isle of Vis, which I can show you on a map, off the coast of Yugoslavia, which I learned later was Tito's headquarters. The Germans had other islands nearby, but they didn't take that for whatever reason. There was some sort of a standoff. And there was a little emergency landing strip on that island. So we went there, we were going to land there, but just minutes before, the plane had landed there in distress and got stuck in the middle of the runway.
Oh dear.
So it was unavailable. So all our pilot could do was to swing around, fly over the island once more, and tell us to jump out. And they told me first, I guess I was the youngest one. And I jumped out, and I think we lost 4. One fell in the bay and drowned, and 3 never knew what happened, never got out of the plane, maybe. I don't know what the reason was. So
How do you exit the plane? Is there a side?
Pardon?
How do you exit the plane? Is there a side door? Or?
There's only one entrance and exit to the B-24, and it's the bomb bay.
Really?
Yeah. We opened the bomb bay, and we just crouched at the end and went over head first. They always told you, you go out head first because you don't want to be caught by the wind and have your head banged into the
Back of the fuselage.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
So you go out head first. Went out head first, and we were not that high, 2,000 or 3,000 feet, so I just waited 10 or 15 seconds and pulled the ripcord and walked along down, going down. But I remember the wonderful feeling of free fall.
Yeah. Still remember that?
Yeah.
Wow. Was that the only time you ever jumped out of a plane?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They didn't practice that. I guess they figured that there's too much of a chance of something going wrong. So the first time you did it, it was because you needed to.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, some of you may know this, but these guys they never jumped out of a plane before. They figured if you had to jump out of a plane, you're going to jump out of the plane. So they didn't want to risk anybody getting injured, is my understanding. And so they never jumped out before. So when they were given the bailout, they knew 2 things. Put your head down, go head first, and get the hell out there as quick as possible. And that's what they did. And some of them made it and some of them didn't. Okay, here's another not so famous landing. Some people know this guy. Does anybody know Mel Hayes? Raise your hand if you know Mel. Nobody. He was a fighter pilot. He's still alive. He's 102 and a half. That's him on the left. He was from Kansas. And he landed on V's on October 14th, 1944, 7 days after my uncle. He was in the 31st Fighter Group. I'm sure we don't have any fighter groups here. I think we have one, but anyway, he really had an experience there. It's kind of a freak accident. Another plane had jettisoned a tank and damaged his cockpit canopy and his vertical stabilizer. So he didn't want to, they told him to go in the sea, and he said, well, I'm not going in the goddamn sea. I can't swim. So, I mean, he's pretty pig-headed, but he turned out to be pretty smart. He overshot the strip, stopped in a vineyard, and flipped right over, and he was hanging there by his harness, soaked in oil and fuel, gas, and he thought he was goner. But the partisans rushed out there, and he was rescued, and he flew 31 more missions. I got Mel to record a greeting to this group.
I wish I could be with you today, but I am 102 and a half years old. I am Lieutenant Colonel Clayton M. Hayes. I was with the 15th Air Force, 31st Fighter Group during World War II in Senigallia, Italy. On my 4th mission, I was hit by a drop tank at 27,000 feet, which disabled my tail rudder. Luckily, I made it to V's airfield and crash landed. V's was the last hope for many U.S. airmen. Jim Peck will tell you the story.
He returned to these twice. He came back in 2012 and he came back in 2013. He had such a great time. There's some YouTube videos of him there. He was a rock star. He was the Sanford Jones of his era. Sanford, wake up now, come on. Yeah, Mel Hayes was a rock star there. And you can see the quote at the bottom, "I've always been attached to the place. My life almost ended on that island. Then it really started." Okay, I took this from Beast, The Last Hope. Daniel Furka, who's a diver and an author, put this in there. And this is kind of a condensed view. There's much wider, more islands are covered. It shows all the planes that went in around Beast that we're aware of, based upon the MACRs, the missing air crew reports people are aware of, the last position that they were known to be. All the red ones haven't been found yet, but we know they're there. The ones that are in green, you can see the green ones. There's actually, when the book was written in 2012, there's only 6 that were green that were found. Now there's 19. Because the technology of finding these old planes on the bottom of the ocean is so much more improved today. It's amazing what they can find. The trick is the divers can only go so low. You've got to be a really good diver to get down more than 300 feet, whatever. So, you got to get a good diver there. You can see, maybe I can point it out here. This little yellow one right there, that's my uncle's plane, right down to the south. It came in from the north, and the plane actually was seen going in the water. There's a couple more here, and I'm going to show a few in a second here. Okay, here's one that's pretty intact. You can see the picture of it. You may have seen this picture before. This has been found. The divers go down to it all the time. So if you're a diver, I'm not a diver, but you can go to Beast and they'll take you out there. And this is a beautiful, beautiful looking, intact B-17. What I understand is the B-17s were a heck of a lot easier to ditch. The B-24s, the statistic I've seen, 25% made it, 75% broke in two. That's what they tended to do. They would break in two. There was a co-pilot who went down with this B-17. His name's on the bottom, Lieutenant Ernest Vieno. He happened to be injured, and that's why he went down with it. They couldn't pull him out. So he was still in there. This is his grandnephew. That's him, obviously on the left. That's a picture of Ernest Vieno, and look at the uncanny resemblance. And so these people, they lived in California. They went to the State Department group that does MIA, and they kept saying, you gotta go down, and you gotta go down, you gotta go down. So guess what? Finally, in 2019, they recovered his remains, and his remains came back to the U.S. So that's a good story. Who doesn't know about Tulsa American? Probably everybody knows about Tulsa American. This is one of the most famous planes. It was the last one made in Tulsa, I guess. And it crashed off of Beast. But guess what? It's a B-24. And guess what? It split. And the top fell off. Fortunately, most of them got out. But they found the plate, and they know the serial number on the right-hand side. You can't read it, but that's 4251430. And Daniel Furka was one of the divers that went down on this. The last B-24, who's seen the last B-24? Most people have seen this. I highly recommend this. This is a documentary you can get on Amazon Prime. You just have to get a subscription, I guess. The Department of Defense project to recover the remains of 3 crew. The DPAA, which is the Defense POW MIA accounting agency, went out there, and the Croatian Navy gave them a ship to look for the remains. And this documentary is well done. So they found the remains of pilot Captain Eugene Ford, and they returned him for burial at Arlington National Cemetery. 2 other crew members, they haven't yet found their remains. And their names are Flight Engineer Charles Priest and Navigator Russell C. Landry. This is Eugene Ford at the top. That's the ship on the lower left. And the lower right is a kind of I took a screenshot off of the documentary, and you can see the bones, the white bones that they found in Ford's body, and they positively identified him. They also found his wedding ring, too. This is another one, Lady Luck. I don't know if we have a 484th here, but yeah, Lady Luck was found. This is a 3D schematic. I'm sorry?
That was our father's plane.
I can't, I have bad hearing.
Lady Luck 44th, that was our father's plane. He flew almost 33 missions with that.
Oh, really?
Before it was given over to another crew, and that got shot up and they fixed it. I'm sorry to...
No problem. That's great.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's the first time I've seen it.
Yeah. So maybe you can go out there and dive down. No? No, he's going to do it. He's going. Okay, not him. Yeah, I think there's 6 crew members still on the plane. Is that right? Does that sound right? That's my understanding. So they haven't recovered them yet. Maybe they will. Okay, so I went to Vies myself last October with my brother to find out about my uncle. I met 3 helpful men. Niall Brannigan is a retired DPAA official. He was pretty much instrumental in the Tulsa American. And he wrote a little paper called Allied Presence on Vies. Daniel Furka, I already mentioned. And then Velimir Maratnik, he's a fig farmer. Really nice guy. And unlike most Croatians, he likes to talk about World War II. I got to tell you, a lot of them don't like to talk about it because they still have a bad taste in their mouth, because what happened after is they became communist, and it was hell on wheels for people who lived there. So it's very difficult to talk to some people. But Velimir loves it. He loves it. He has his own little museum we discovered. It's a little brick building next to his field. His watermelons grow. He sells his watermelons, and he has all his old artifacts. He's got all sorts of artifacts. Heck of a guy. And I talk to him every day now. He's my brother. Did I do Lady Luck? I did that, all right. If I only knew what I was doing here. Okay, this is a couple of pictures of upper left-hand corner. That's the inside of his little museum. That's my brother in the Jimmy truck. He has a Jimmy truck, and we got it going again, and that's a lot of fun to drive on those narrow roads there. On the lower left, that's my brother talking to Velimir, and see that parachute on the table. So he says to me, he said, well, I said, I'm looking for a parachute for my uncle. He said, well, I got a parachute. What? He goes into this metal box and he brings it out and he starts unfolding it, and I'm like, my heart is going, I'm going to see my uncle's ID tags fall out of this thing. No, that wasn't it. Some sailor turned it in. They took these parachutes out. They used them for sails and for cover, and they had paint all over them and everything. The lower right-hand corner is the cemetery, Allied cemetery that was there. There were, I think, 79 buried there, 29 Americans and 50 British. But they removed them all after the war. So this memorial still stands there, and it's a really, really great memorial. It has Roosevelt's 4 freedoms. I'm not going to say them all, but freedom from want, freedom from fear. Help me out. There's 2 other ones.
Freedom of speech and expression.
Yeah. Okay, you got it.
What's the other one?
Anyway, if you know, you can Google it. And
From want.
sorry?
Freedom from want.
Freedom from want. That's right. Freedom from want. Exactly. And it's just very inspiring. It's still there, and there's a vineyard there. And when we walked down there, I walked down with Velimir. He said, well, here's a couple of grapes. And I said to him, there's probably some DNA from these guys in these grapes. You know, I don't know. I'm weird that way. This is another place on V's that if you go, you got to go to. This is actually a place you can eat in the lower right hand. You can see it. It was not part of the airstrip, but it's called the aerodrome. And you can see it's in both, you can't read it, but it's English and Croatian there, and the upper right is inside. They have all sorts of pictures there. By the way, I highly recommend going to V's on a vacation. This is what the emergency landing strip looked like recently. They want to open it again. Some guys want to open it again. It's not open right now. So my brother and I got taken by Velimer. He called us up and he says, you want to go? I think I found your uncle's some plane parts from the uncle. Oh, okay. We just have to walk a little ways down to the ocean. 3 hours later, it was a hot day, and he said, you have enough water? By the time we got down there, we run out of water, totally. And you can see how rocky it was in the right hand. And you can see me in the middle with my hands on my hips. I was just about had it. But we found that stuff on the upper left hand. You can't see it, but one of those parts is from a B-24. Now, was it my uncle's? I don't know. There were a lot of planes that went down out there. There's actually a .50 caliber shell there, too, and a couple other things that we identified as B-24. The day after, Velimer sent me a text, and he said, you know, we shouldn't have gone there. He said, that's a minefield, and it hasn't been cleared yet. He's got a wicked sense of humor. And then he says, we're sitting there, we're having a few drinks with all of the people. We were the Americans, we attracted all these people. And we're sitting at the table, and he says to his friend, he says, make sure you go out and drop some more parts for the next American who comes along. And I looked at him and I go, is he kidding? I think he was kidding. So Velimer has this dream. His dream is to expand his small museum. And, you know, the 15th doesn't have a museum. And I think that's a total shame. I know some people here have worked on it. But this would be the ideal place. This is my pitch here. The ideal place, so I've been working with a group since last October of 11 people. We have the National Federation of Croatian American Cultural Foundation, which is a real mouthful, but it's basically 90,000 members, believe it or not. I'm not sure if I believe it, but, and then there's a Croatian Military History Foundation. So we also have the support of the U.S. Embassy, and we set up a new nonprofit. It's actually a Croatian nonprofit. We don't have a U.S. nonprofit, believe it or not. We're trying to set one up. It will memorialize all the Allied airmen who landed or tried to land, and the partisans. The lives of over 4,000 Allied airmen were saved by the airstrip and the actions of the RAF and the partisans there. So it's a valid cause, and my brother and I are really into it, so we're a little weird that way. So last July, I went back to V's, and we had a commemorative event. We raised $10,000. We had a great event. We had over 300 people there. It was held right next to the old airstrip. It was the 80th anniversary of the death of the first Allied airmen, and the partisans were killed in the same crash. The wreaths were laid by the family of the airmen and the partisans and the representatives of the U.S. and Croatian government, and the mayor of Vis was there. We had a Black Hawk flyover. This is not a U.S. Black Hawk. This is a Croatian Black Hawk. There's a lot of countries that buy those Black Hawks. We happen to have a guy who so we got the Black Hawk to land. I said it's actually over 300. That's a typo. And the head of the Croatian Air Force, Major General Krizanek, and the U.S. Defense Attaché, Colonel McLean, were there. This is Lieutenant John J.C. Kim. He was the first one to die on V's. He was a fighter pilot from Honolulu. He died of his wounds in a crash. You can see the details there. On takeoff, it's something wrong, and he died 2 days later. And unfortunately, there were a number of Allied partisans who happened to be going by at that time, and they were killed in the crash. This is some pictures of the ceremony from July 5th. You can see the general and the colonel saluting the wreaths they just laid at the memorial You can see the memorial better in the right top picture. That is the nephew of Lieutenant Kim, who I found in California. The Black Hawk, and then this is the group here that's got together. The mayor's in that picture, and the guy way in the back sticking his head up, that's me. We have a Facebook page. I'm surprised that I'm the first one to try to get people to look at Facebook. I know some of you people are a little older, but Facebook is a great place to share information. So this is the Facebook page. It's called Wies World War II Memorial Center, The Last Hope. So I hope get out there and join it. We have daily posts of the daily activity, and it's a great page. My email is on here, and if you're trying to take pictures and remember stuff, just write down my email, and I will answer you. This is an artist rendering of the new Memorial Center. It's just one rendering next to the old airstrip. You can see we have some replicas, or some of these planes are for sale, guys. B-17s. I don't know about B-24s, but I know there's some B-17s for sale. A little pricey. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows much about building a facsimile. I don't know if that's possible, but that's something we're looking into. But we just need a place to get out of the sun, basically, because you get baked there in July and August. And this is just one concept. So here I am. Why did I come today? We raised $10,000 very easily, I should say. We had a lot of, help to get the publicity, and that's why I'm here today, is just get the word out. We're looking for more donors, and we have a GoFundMe page. I thought I put the GoFundMe page on it. I think it's on the next page. There it is. Okay, anyway, my brother just sent me this morning an estimate of what it would cost, and it was like $400,000. So we need a corporate sponsor, and we have a couple possibilities to build it there. What's really nice about doing it in Wies is it's just a great place to take a vacation. It's unfortunate my uncle had to die there, but there's nice beaches, and the people are nice. It's easy to get to. It's cheap, and it's a great place for a memorial center. They have World War II tours and jeeps that go around, but they don't have many places to go. They go to the cemetery, they go to, Tito's Cave, but this will be another stop for them. So anyway, we're working on it, and the money will go to purchasing and installing equipment, artifacts, facilities, information boards, multimedia, blah, blah, blah. So this is a pet project of mine. You can make small donations, large donations, to the GoFundMe. We just set it up a few days ago. We used the GoFundMe only because we didn't have any other alternative. We're going to find a better alternative. And at this point, it's not tax deductible, unfortunately. So all the funds will be transferred to create the memorial. How am I doing for time? Am I way over?
Not way over.
I think that means way over. Okay. So please donate if you can. These brave Allied airmen, they won the war. I really believe that the Air Force has won the war, because they crippled the war machine, and not just the 8th, but the 15th. So if you can help me get a new Masters of the Air and help donate, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.